Now we have our next panel, and I'm going to ask our panelists to come up on stage, which is all about retailers and brands working together. So, thank you. As we get up on the stage, we'll introduce everybody, get everybody set. Again, if you want some more coffee, it's in the back, or tea, or breakfast is still available. Help yourself as we're setting up all of our chairs. So probably, from my standpoint, the one thing that I hear an awful lot about from grocerants is the fact that they don't know how to work with brands. That, you know, on the grocery side, you've got these leading brands that are out there that are constantly doing consumer research, that are having these great insights, and they never seem to get into the whole sector of grocerants. So this session is really designed to explore what are some of the assets that are out there, how can we tap into them, and what are some of the frustrations, frankly, that the leaders of the industry that are here are faced with in dealing with brands. So, you know, first up, I'm going to ask Jeremy Gosch from Hy-Vee, who has recently been appointed to a new position that not only is Executive Vice President, but oversees the entire grocerant sector for Hy-Vee. We talked a little bit about Market Grill before. So, Jeremy, from where you sit, you know, what are the challenges that you have working with brands?
Our biggest real challenges come into, first of all, recognizing us as a restaurant. You know, that's a large challenge for us, is having two separate business units inside of a facility that's really known for selling groceries. And really the second piece is figuring out where strategy and innovation through manufacturing can really link up to our brand and really have a synergy moving forward to drive sales and drive usage, and at the same time give a food experience that separates us from most restaurants we compete with.
How many Market Grills are there now?
Today we have 108 restaurants, and so we separate those into two fashions. One's a Market Grill Express, which is an order model with a bar and a sit-down area inside, and then the second one is a full-service sit-down restaurant. So the way we're set up inside of metros like Kansas City or Minneapolis is we'll have a Market Grill, and then around it we'll have basically a spoke of Market Grill Expresses as we continue to roll them out. We're really in year two. By the end of 2019, we're going to have 200 restaurants. Basically, we'll have one in all of our stores in one of the two formats.
So I'm shocked when you tell me that you've got, you know, over 100 restaurants, and you can't get these brands to understand that you're a restaurant chain, because, you know, without divulging any numbers and so on, I've been to Market Grills. I mean, these are big restaurants. This is not, you know, doing 10 grand a week. So for the fact that you can't get their attention, and get those assets, it's got to be very frustrating, especially growing up in grocery where you have all these brands throwing everything at you. So, you know, I'm going to switch it over to the brand side, and Randy Raymond, from Coca-Cola is with us. Randy, you know, I've experienced Coca-Cola for a number of years, and you've got not only the Coca-Cola Research Council, but you've really worked very closely with every major, you know, retailer and I'm sure food service operator that exists, giving them Coke intelligence, for lack of a better word, my word. How come you're not paying attention to Jeremy? What's going on here?
Trust me, I know Jeremy has a restaurant. I can assure you of that. But really, you know, my role within Coca-Cola is kind of the linchpin. You know, Coca-Cola is 131 years old, and our genesis was in food service. And so over that 131 years, we've amassed, a ton of knowledge, and we've made lots of investments in understanding that space. And so specifically part of my role within Coca-Cola is to be that bridge between our food service organization, that through all these investments now enjoys 3 out of 4 locations in the United States pouring our products. But as a function of those investments, we're able to now take these over into the retail space. As we've talked about, you know, all the growth is in the perimeter, all the focus is on the perimeter, all the focus is on food service. So a lot of the investments we've made, whether it's proprietary insights, you know, around our iShop, which really talks about trip missions and shoppers in the retail space. Later this year, we're going to be taking the next click down. We're launching our new Dine study, which is diner insights, needs, and experiences. And we're going to be able to take the next click down around the dining experience at retail, both in convenience retail as well as in grocery. We're also invested in the Global Restaurant Leadership Council. So we're now invested on a leadership level. But we've got a lot of insights that we can help retailers with. So
that's the 30,000-foot level. Let's drill it down. What are some of the basics? And, not necessarily for Jeremy and Hy-Vee, but for somebody who's just starting grocerants, who really just wants to start to get into this business, what can a brand offer them? And be as specific as possible. You mentioned, trip analysis and so on, but, what can a grocerant expect from Coca-Cola?
It's an entire spectrum. If it's the basics, we've got the linkage back to, so if you're thinking about getting into food service for the first time, we can tell you what's going on in the restaurant environment, right? That's the first primary competitor. Everyone especially in this space, wants to model fast casual. We've got links into fast casual, and we've got decks that talk about what's going on in the channel, right? What's driving consumers? What are the food service trends that retailers need to be aware of so they can build their business with those trends in mind to try and leapfrog what a lot of restaurants are already doing. And so we've got that level of insight around, gosh, if I'm thinking about putting this together, what are the culinary trends? What are the restaurant trends by channel that I need to be aware of that I can leverage as I build my concept out?
So one last question, and this could be for everybody on the panel, but I've got to assume, and possibly incorrectly, that there's a battle that you've got, the guy in grocery that says, don't talk to Coca-Cola, that's my guy, and now you've got the person in charge of grocerants and saying, I want to talk to Coke. So what goes on internally, if anything, with that battle? Richard, you're nodding your head.
There's a lot that goes on with that battle internally, and I think really what we have the benefit of doing is explaining the why. So I think with the manufacturing industry, there is so much data, so many insights out there that if we can distill it down, present it in a way to the senior leadership that has an understanding of where we're trying to go and why we're going to get there, we can build the case that much easier. I come from a multi-unit food service background, so having the opportunity to say, this is why we're doing it. We want to pair this beverage with that meal to build the average check and build the basket within our department and get that trip frequency up and get them in 1 to 2 times per week as opposed to 2 to 3 times per month. So we've just had the benefit of show the data, but really explain it in a way that's going to talk about the pocketbook, that's going to talk about the top line sales and that bottom line contribution, and everything usually seems to go really, really well.
But in you nodding your head, I got the impression that there is some internal battle that, the grocery guy doesn't want you to talk to Coke because he wants to keep those insights for himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great for me coming in with a different perspective. So coming in from the multi-unit food service world into the retail space now, you just bring a new perspective. You bring new thoughts, you bring new leadership, and people are willing to listen because we see the growth. We see those double-digit growth numbers within those fresh departments year over year. It's happening. People are coming in. How do we leverage that? It just takes a lot of talking, a lot of the same conversation over and over. But you can get there with the data, with the insights. And I think that's what we need to make sure we utilize, not just because we think subjectively it's the right decision.
So let's bring it down to C-stores. Jim, with your operation, and in fact, on the plane coming over here, I actually watched, I don't know if you've seen it, but the movie The Founder, which is about Ray Kroc and McDonald's. And early on, one of the primary battles between the McDonald brothers and Ray Kroc was that he had reached out to Coca-Cola, matter of fact, to sponsor the menu boards. And the McDonald brothers were livid. I mean, how could you put a logo on our menu board and just everything that they stood for? So it didn't happen until after he got rid of them, matter of fact. But Jim, when I look at C-stores, I mean, that's an environment that has been created by menu boards and so on. And as you're trying to evolve Quick Trip into a grocerant experience, what are some of those challenges? And again, what do brands bring to the party for you?
Well, let's see if this is on. Yeah. It's about being the hero. You want to be able to go into the convenience store and bring home, let's say somebody sends you out for cream cheese. You want to be able to bring home a name brand. not something that C-stores are notorious for by having either a private brand or an off-brand of sorts. And then, more importantly, it becomes, as we try to become a destination, we just really want to be the one that has the most to offer in the shortest period of time. So
that's interesting to me from an observational standpoint, because what we see in retail, and, correct me if I'm wrong, we see more store brands, more private label, taking place in supermarkets where they're upping the quality, making, brands very nervous, about that. But in C-stores, it's different. You're pushing those brands.
Well, we don't have the SKU capacity. In a grocery, you have the ability to have the name brand as well as the private brand. Now, we do have a lot of our own private brands. So I'll give you that. We had to create a lot of private labels in order to be able to operate in the states that we operate. But with our limited shelf availability, we want to make sure we have those name brands out there.
So what do these brands bring to you as far as insights, and what does that relationship look like?
It's a great relationship. We rely heavily on companies and manufacturers, especially with the data that some of the others have spoke about this morning. Really, they're the ones with the resources to be able to get that information and get it down to you. We're spending enough money where we warrant them sharing that information with us. So it's one of those things that you just become reliant on when you don't have the resources yourself. So,
Jeremy, and when I look at the Market Grill logo, it's Market Grill big and Hy-Vee small. I'm sure that there was some discussion when you started the whole Market Grill concept that said, why don't we just call it Hy-Vee Restaurant? Let's talk about the branding, if you would. We've talked about the brands to help, but what about the branding of your restaurant? How does that take place, and what do you need for that?
Well, the branding of the restaurant, frankly, was completely intent upon giving us a destination separate from a grocery store. And we have food service, which, we've got a variety of avenues inside of the store. That's the quick meal solution. So that's really what the Hy-Vee food service is all about. The purpose of the brand was to create a destination restaurant apart from the food service that we have every day. I mean, the menu is independent of the food service operation, and everything is done for the restaurant by the folks that operate the restaurant. We have a chef in every restaurant, as well as the sous chefs and line cooks and everything that you'd see in a normal restaurant. So the challenge is to create the destination completely separate. I mean, we've got a glass wall that separates the two, that's got fireplace that shows, both sides. We've got a casual seating area in our stores that you sit in if you eat from the food service. You don't go into the restaurant area and sit down and eat unless it's an express. So we've, frankly, with the branding, have really gone out and tried to make it a completely different destination. I mean, and the way we looked at it as we were engaging in this, and we opened our first one 3 years ago, was we could open one freestanding without the store attached to it. And that was the intent when we went out. So, I mean, the brand and the purpose of the brand, frankly, is to create a destination restaurant and to call it a Hy-Vee restaurant, Hy-Vee food service. I mean, we already did it with Hy-Vee gas, and we found how creative that was. So, as we went into a restaurant business, obviously we had to make it a destination that people were proud to go to and call a restaurant and not call a food store or a grocery store. And I think as it will continue to blur and blend. When you go out to the coasts, New York and in those areas, you see a lot more people comfortable with just sitting out in the middle of aisles and in the middle of stores eating. It hasn't come to the Midwest yet. So for us, the branding was very important to really create the separation and segregation to really get people to want to go there. And frankly, it makes your meal worth more. So I can get a $10 and $11 and a $12 burger versus my food service restaurant where my Chinese is getting $6 a meal. I mean, so I want to ask more. I want the experience to be better. I want the ambiance to be better. And it's all about the brand.
So when I look at, everything that you're doing, and I want you to talk a bit about some of the extraordinary things that you've brought to a supermarket. So you've got a fabulous Sunday brunch, which I understand has waiting lines. You've got cooking studios that are part of the Market Grill, not part necessarily of the supermarket. How important are those things, and what's the role of brands to help you? I mean, do you call up, Randy and say, we're going to have a Sunday brunch. What does Coke bring to the party for us?
Yeah, and we've got opportunities there, Phil, to be honest. We've done a lot of things on our own. And the one that I think of that we haven't done a lot with is the we've got a room off of our Market Grills that is for groups, and what they do is come in and make meals for the week. So it's Blue Apron that they prepare themselves. So we get groups between 15 and 25 people that come in, and it's booked in every store it's in. And they can drink wine in there, which I think is part of the attraction, you know. And then they create meals for the week for the entire group. And they pick groups and come in. And frankly, those are things for us that we should be better coming to Coke and Kraft Heinz and P&G in the world and really putting recipes and plans together. Right now, we are doing it all internally, but I think there's huge opportunities there for us to really merge the two together as we continue to go down this path of really a meal solution for both in the store and at home.
So how do we get that conversation going? Obviously, you guys know each other. You work together close. But here's an opportunity with a major retailer who's doing some really cool things from a grocerant standpoint. You know, how do we get brands involved in that discussion? And Richard, you know, just hearing what Jeremy said, knowing what, you know, Coke does and all their assets, how do we get these two guys together in a room?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we reach out a lot more with the food partners. So thinking about the Riches of the world and some of the brands that are in the room today, they're already in our stores, in our in-store bakeries. They're already in our traditional delis, and they've got amazing resources when it comes to chef teams, culinary insights, R&D, and the challenge that we've had and that we've really had to help focus, at least within the Canadian marketplace, is how do we get the food service side of that business and the retail side of that business speaking together to truly understand that we are that food service opportunity within the store. Because too often do I see the deli clerk going out, grabbing a package of gnocchi, grabbing a 250 milliliter jar of Alfredo sauce, grabbing a bunch of parsley to make the recipe. We need to start to leverage those food service pieces much better. And I think it's really just within the manufacturing organizations and understanding that we need those two sides of the business to come together as one to then visit the food service of the retail spaces that are out there. And that's where we started to see some great success. Nestle Professional has some outstanding products that are just geared towards food service in the US or Canada. So being able to bring those into our kitchens and give the understanding to our deli clerks that a 4-liter pouch of our Alfredo sauce is going to save you cost in packaging. It's going to have better efficiency from cross-utilization across the counter. We just need to really, again, understand the why and explain the whys to our teams and really give them the reason that we want to do it. Because I think it's knowledge-based right now. We've got traditional deli clerks that have been serving barbecue chickens for 30 years. We're a 110-year-old company this year. It is tough to go into these delis and to tell somebody that I want you to slice your green onions on a bias with a chef knife, not with a paring knife or a plastic knife that they pulled out of the cutlery counter. And it's reality right now. So I think the more that we can utilize the resources in our stores because they're already there, it's just going to start to build those relationships much, much better.
So you mentioned culinary. Is it in fact, and I'm using the model of food service and retail going back, 20, 30 years ago, where those people didn't talk. The people in the deli didn't talk to the other people. There was a wall there. That finally broke down. So, you mentioned Nestle Pro, you mentioned Riches. What are the assets that they have? Is it where they bring in people to train your people, to give them recipes? What are the specifics that would help you operate a business better? And how do we break that wall down? How do we tell, and I'm making it up, how do we tell Nestle Pro, I don't want 2 people calling on my store. I want, one person who can deal with the culinary aspect and deal with that. I don't even know if that's feasible. But what do you need?
So I think for us, what we had to do over the past year and a half is set a strategy on what we want to stand for. So we tried to stand for everything. We stood for barbecue chicken for a long time, and then we stood for pizza, and then sandwiches, and then sushi, and then noodle bar, and it kept expanding without a focus on a holistic menu overview of what we truly wanted to be. So being able to brief and speak with the manufacturing levels and have them understand, here's our strategy, here's our vision, here's where we want to get to in 5 years, and have targeted development specific to what we're trying to do, and not just have a product presented that just gets added to the assortment. It needs to be a program. It needs to be transformational. It needs to be something a lot bigger with that cross-utilization of products. So the conversations that I have consistently with our manufacturing world is I don't just want a product. And if you bring me a product, I want 9 applications for that product. In my pizza, my sushi, my hot bar, my cold bar, my salad bar, to really start thinking like a restaurant. And the manufacturing world has some of the best executive chef teams in the country working for them. They understand multi-unit food service. We need to share that passion within the grocery retail standpoint because nobody knows. And that's what I've really found coming into this role now, is that what I think are the basics are not even being executed at store level right now. So really we have to go back. And I think that's where the manufacturers can help with their culinary team specifically on training, on the data, on the insights, and how to really bring it to life consistently across the country. We've got 1,550 stores that we need to do this. Those are a lot of factories that are trying to do the same thing. When we decide what we want to stand for, what we want to produce in store, we have an opportunity then to outsource some of those other products to get that consistency across all of those stores and across the country.
And Jeremy, you're nodding in agreement. Tell us
Well,
why.
a couple things, I think. First of all, with most manufacturers, and it kind of goes back to the lines, but, you said something that I think, I disagree with just a bit, because it's not about having one resource from Coke. It's about having the right resources from all of the manufacturers that fit into our business model. So a lot of times what we need is more than one resource, because unfortunately a lot of our current contacts, being a retail company for most CPGs, know how to sell 12 packs of Coke, but they don't really have the culinary side from Coke or whoever. I mean, I'm using Coke because he's on stage, but that's been our challenge, is getting the right teams in the store that have the chefs and the expertise. And a lot of your fresh manufacturers get it, but some of your traditional CPGs don't. And that's where I think there's a line that's still really hard for us to get through, because we need the right people in the room that have expertise in restaurants to come and see us and work with us on efficiencies in product. And that's what we keep struggling with, is one-time use ingredients and small individual packets and things like that we need access to the other book of goods, per se, and expertise in those areas.
So, Randy, let me throw it back to you. How do they get all those assets that you have? And maybe, with Coke, it's a bad example. Or maybe it's a great example, because I don't think of Coke as being, and I say this respectfully, a culinary company. Are you a culinary company, and what do you have to offer when it comes to culinary?
I think this is an opportunity where success is really leveraging everything that everyone brings to the table. So we're not a culinary company. The Rich Foods and those folks are really going to help you build your food. We've got some insights that help you do that. But you probably have, other suppliers, other CPG companies that can do a better job. They've got the chefs, they've got the culinary staffs, et cetera. Where we can complement, is, they can help you with the culinary. We're particularly good, and our strengths are more in the merchandising side. Right, so you're just now getting into this. How do I think about digital menu boards? How do I think about communicating the product? How do I think about path to purchase? How do I think about merchandising? How do I come up with bundles? How do I merchandise it together? How do I drive average check? That's where someone like Coca-Cola, can definitely help. Our expertise is really helping build that basket. Is I think where we can help complement it. But I think to Jeremy's point, I think that success truly is leveraging the strengths. I think that all the resources from a CPG perspective that you have available to you, and really play to those cores.
What you're saying brings up a thought, and I don't know if anybody on the panel has ever done this or participated, but I'm going to start with you, Randy. Has there ever been an occasion where a retailer, you don't have to name the retailer, has called you and said, we're going to bring in our top 6 food service suppliers. We're going to bring in Nestle Pro, we're going to bring in Rich's, we're going to bring in Coca-Cola. We're going to seat you guys around the table, and we want to hear what all of you have to say. And then maybe, the merchandising part goes to Coca-Cola because you do it well. But have you ever been involved in a group discussion with non-competing brands or competing brands to serve a retailer and bring the whole grocerant to the next level?
Personally, I have not, but I know it has been done. And there are a couple of retailers that are really, really good in this space, and do a good job of leveraging kind of the CPG brands to help build it out. And again, I think that we're building on a theme here. And I think that's where you're going to be most effective. Is when you're bringing in the Nestle Pros, you're bringing in the Rich Foods, you're bringing in the Coca-Cola, you've got everyone at the table to help build an iconic meals platform. Because that's obvious, that's clearly what everyone is aspiring to be, is have an iconic, ownable meals platform. It's gonna build my basket size, it's gonna generate, incremental trips. If you're talking to the center store people and there's this conflict between the two, this incremental trips, right, that's the tide that rises all boats, right? When you're bringing people into the store, sure, they might be buying an icy beverage in the deli, but they're also likely to be putting a 2-liter or a 12-pack in their basket as well. So everyone benefits when you drive trips.
So let's again bring it down to the C-store. When we talk about this branding, when we talk about this collaboration, what goes on in the C-store from a brand standpoint, the assets that you really want? Do you want the culinarians from, Rich's and Nestle Pro to come in and teach your people what to do, or are you looking for recipes from them? What do you want from these brands?
Well, we certainly want their ideas, and we want the products that they represent. But our industry is pretty unique. Our National Association of Convenience Store, NACS, brings a lot of us together to do some of this collaboration that you just mentioned, which is really unique. And further, within our groups of C-store operators, we have what we call share groups. And it's the most unique thing I've ever experienced, having come from huge food companies, and I've never seen anything like it, where there is a level of collaboration on best practices. And we actually rely on Don Longo over here with Convenience Store News to be able to do some of those things as well. Most recently, he had a group of C-store operators and manufacturers together out in Napa at the Greystone at the CIA. And they all collaborated and had a great time together. But they did a chef sort of tasting and wine tasting, and got a lot of these great ideas. And I've never seen anything quite like it in my career, and it's really quite wonderful. But one of the things that is unique about Quick Trip is that we're actually a manufacturer as well. So we're two food companies within our C-store business. And so we do rely on the Dons and the Riches of the world as well to bring our people, their people in and work with our people to develop recipes that we then push out. But the culinary aspect is a little bit different in a C-store environment, as you might imagine. We had to teach everybody how to use a knife and those kinds of things. So that was a challenge when we first got into the food business, which was 13 years ago. But it's evolved, and we had a lot of people just selling gas, right? They didn't know anything about food. But today, we're a restaurant that sells gas.
Well, when I look at the picture that Trey had put up of the design that they created for sheets, when you look at a design like that, what are your emotions? Do you say, "Wow, that's great," or do you say, "Wow, that company's going to put me out of business," or "Wow, I really need to up my game"?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Sheets is one of our share partners, actually. So we understand a lot of what they're doing. They're very similar to Quick Trip in that they have their own bakery, they have their own commissary. So we share a lot of those kinds of things. We're very proud of Sheets and what they've done. Certainly we've taken elements from their store design. They've taken elements from our store design to kind of bring everything to raise the tide, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure we have clean bathrooms, good food, quality people, so that all C-stores will benefit. In the end, we're going to benefit.
Let's talk a little bit about grocerants and where we think this thing is going. And I'll start with you, Richard, and we'll just go down. Is this a fad? I mean, are we going to see grocerants gone in 5 years or 10 years? And how big do you think this is, and what's the next evolution of grocerants?
Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere whatsoever. If anything, it's going to get stronger and stronger. And I know coming from where I did in the multi-unit food service world, I was with the largest executive chef for one of the largest multi-unit food service organizations in Canada. And let me tell you, I was watching this industry from the other side. And I was watching our guest counts decline year over year, and I was watching the transactions and the sales going up of the retail competitors. That's the reason I made the switch over, and that's what I absolutely love about it. I think where we need to do a much better job, and what we've started to do, is with our people. It comes back to our people, and if we truly want to be a grocerant and we truly want to be this retail food service experience, we need the right people in the right roles. We need to make sure that we have prep cooks that prep, we've got line cooks that prepare the food, and we've got people that can sell. And it was spoken about earlier with the aspect that restaurants do an amazing part at is that customer service. We need to make sure that we're telling the story, that we can romance the product. It's not just a deli salad anymore. It's a beautifully in-house roasted beet salad with that creamy goat cheese, toasted pecans that I glazed with that Quebec maple syrup the morning when I got in today. Like, we need to be able to articulate that piece. And once we start to do that in a much better way, we will take more and more business from our restaurant competitors. Because let me tell you, we've got the resources behind us, we've got the dollars behind us, we've got amazing quality products, we've got a store as our pantry when we need product. I remember on a Friday night having to run to the grocery store to buy the cilantro that I ran out of. We have it all there. So I believe the next evolution is going to be, from what we're seeing, less full service, more customization, more fast casual. And that's where we're really going. We've got these 65,000 square foot stores where I've got 45 feet of 5-deck merchandising space refrigerated that's all full service. And I think about our labor model and I think about the customization or the lack thereof. It's not helping us in any way. We want to shrink that down. It's all about convenience. We want grab and go, and we want to make sure that you can come in and out, or you can modify it as required. So if I think about the taco bar that we're putting together, 3 meats, customizable flavor profiles, in and out in 5 minutes, great quality food, and it's convenient for you. So if anything, it's going to get stronger, and we're going to keep pushing that really, really hard.
So you mentioned about labor being an obstacle. How do we overcome that?
So what we've had to do is really start from scratch. We unfortunately had to remove some of the legacy staff that's been within our business, and it's a tough decision. It is a hard thing to do to have somebody that's been with you for 35 years that just didn't want to make the change. We needed to start recruiting from culinary schools. We needed to start bring people in that wanted a passion or had a passion for food, that wanted a career in culinary. We've had to build a culinary training program that people will want to come and work for us now to be able to elevate their skills. It's not just that we're cutting anymore. We're cutting on a bias. We julienne cut. We do bâton. We want to use culinary terminology to make sure that we're engaging the appropriate people. The more we can do that, our retention rate is going up, our turnover is going down, and to be honest with you, we can bring people in at a lower rate of pay that haven't been with us for 30 years. We have some unionized stores where the average wage it's more than I ever made as an executive sous chef at the CN Tower in Toronto. And we're paying them to do dishes for 6 hours sometimes. What we really need to do is make sure that labor model, you're associating the right labor to the right role. You've got the right skill sets doing the right job, and I think that was our biggest learning, and we had to start from scratch.
Jeremy, where's this whole thing going?
I would agree. It's going to continue to grow. I think everybody wants quick and customized, and they want meal solutions, and they don't have time. So, that's where we continue to evolve. Obviously, we're going to run restaurants, but we're also running meal solution stores. We're also running things that, frankly, give people the answer they need every day. The trips seem to be increasing, but what they buy is decreasing, and again, they want it to be done for them, and done for them the way they like it. I think you're going to see digital continue to play a bigger and bigger role, meaning app-based. This is what I want to get it now. I don't need the contact. I just want to get it conveniently and move on. And that's really, where they're going to go and continue to go long term. And the restaurant is a piece of that, but I think your entire food service establishment is really the solution-based set. You've got your restaurant, you've got your takeout, pickup, and you've also got your food service for quick in and out to go that has to be quality and has to be something that's a destination.
Talk for a minute about meal kits. Where do you think meal kits are? What are you all doing with meal kits? Where do you think that's going?
It's hard to say. If you look at the reorder, the reuse right now, it's not great. So, I don't know if it's proven people just aren't comfortable with the reorder process or if they're still really in the trial phase. So, we're watching it. We've got meal kits developed. We have stores that are doing a meal kit program it's basically a grab and go box, which most of you have seen. I think it'll continue to evolve. I think the jury is still out. I think we'll just wait and see. But again, it goes back to the convenient. And if you can make it quick, convenient, easy, and good, wholesome food at a value, I think it'll win. And right now, the consumer is really dipping in and out of these areas, trying to figure out what that solution is.
Jim, where do you think food service is going to go in C-stores? Obviously, a lot of C-stores have gotten away from the roller grills for hot dogs. They've gotten a little bit more advanced. Some have sushi. You look at Wawa with their produce department. It's great. Give us a snapshot of grocerants in C-stores.
Well, I think we need a term of our own for convenience store restaurants. So come up with that, Phil.
Okay.
Would you? But the food service is just going to keep evolving. We've looked at the meal kits too. I agree with you, Jeremy. I think people are just testing it. The reorder is pretty low. So we think about those things. Do we need to offer those things? And the answer is yes, for the time being, because it is about convenience. Everybody knows 4:00, nobody has an idea what they're having for dinner. So we want to be able to have some of those pieces positioned to be able to solve for that. One of the biggest things that we did, and we're in the grocery business, the produce business as well, but we've added fresh meats to our program, and in every one of our stores you can have fresh meats. It's about giving people these choices, but they're still going to have to essentially go home and cook it. So we've found that does solve some of that take-home meal type of solution. But yeah, things are just going to kind of keep on evolving. I do love to see some of the innovation. The young fellow here from Kroger, they opened up in an amazing store in Columbus, and by the way, we've been in it already. It's the way things are going. It's a lot bigger than a traditional C store, but it's smaller than a grocery store, and I think it's just the right fit kind of thing. So a lot of offerings in there, and probably something that we're going to be doing.
I don't know if you've had a chance to visit yet, but Hy-Vee has opened up a new store. What's the concept? The downtown store?
In West Des Moines.
Oh, just the downtown store.
Yeah, the downtown store, which I think is 50% food, urban fresh, 50% fresh food or prepared foods, and then groceries. Tell us a little bit about that. And then, Randy, I want you to give us an overview of where Coke and you think restaurants are going.
Yeah, the urban fresh concept, frankly, was designed and really played off of, if we have the space that you have in New York, what would you do with it? I mean, that was really where the premise of it started. So it's roughly 30,000 square feet, but it has what we call a full aisle one. So it has a produce department that takes up a good portion of the store, along with all of our full food service. So there's sushi in there. There is a full salad bar, a full New York deli, meaning it's going to be a sandwich shop similar to what you'd see out on the coast. It's got a full Mexican department, hibachi grill, a Chinese department, and a full restaurant. And then it also has a full meat department and a full bakery slammed into 30,000 square feet. So it doesn't leave a lot of space for center store, to Phil's point. So, we're hedging that facility on the quick in and out trips frankly in an urban dense setting, which is where it is downtown Des Moines. So, right now it's frankly the only store we have of its type, and it's very labor intensive, as you can imagine, with it being primarily a fresh store and very small part really allocated towards, traditional center store, but it also has a pharmacy in it. So, we've got all of that to play with inside of a frankly small box. That's been, successful for us. But again, it's our stab at really solving this need state of people looking for a meal solution and looking for a lot of options that are completely customizable to the individual when they don't have time. And frankly, you don't see grocery carts go through there. It's hand baskets. It's grab and go, but you see these folks every day. And that's what we knew going into it was probably going to happen. So for us, again, it's a test. It's been open for 3 or 4 months, but it's been interesting to really watch how it all unfolds.
Any one learning from that you went, wow, I never thought this would happen?
Frankly, for us, I think especially for the restaurant piece, we are in an area that is really the old downtown area in Des Moines. So a lot of very established destination type of restaurants. And we put our restaurant in that area, obviously right downtown. And it's been very successful. So I think for us, one of our learnings was I think our restaurant, the food is very good. It can compete with really anybody anywhere, which I think we all thought, but it really proved to us, because if there's really a foodie area of town, that's it. So that was good. And then the other piece really is really looking at this meal solution as a central focus of the reason to go to a store and have expertise in fresh. And I think it did prove that is out there as well, and that people can get by on less selection and variety in center store, which I think we're all testing the waters there. But for us, it gave us the opportunity to really test what happens when you cut center store back drastically as we did in this store. And it still seems to be an area that can solve the need state for the customer. And frankly, we've got lockers outside of it, that combine the full gamut of our center store offerings online. So if that customer downtown chooses to, they can order anything they want from our 60,000 items that are traditionally in a 100,000 square foot store and pick them up at a locker right outside of the store. So if they want to do all of their fresh down there, they can. and pick up all their center store items or any other items they want inside of our normal selection in a locker that's designated for them for pickup. So that's really how we bridge the center store gap. But I mean, that's a big portion of the test as well.
So Randy, back to you. 30,000 feet up, looking at grocerants from your view and the view of Coca-Cola. Where's this thing going?
I agree with everyone on the panel that this trend around food service and retail is not a fad. It's a trend, and it's going to be here for the long term because you've got everything starting to line up, right? You've got macro consumer trends. We talked a lot yesterday about millennials and centennials. They don't see channel distinctions. I'm a very old Gen Xer, but they don't see channel distinctions. It's not like I go to a convenience store for a snack, I go to a grocery store for groceries, and I go to a restaurant for my meal. It's all kind of one thing. And so they don't see those channel distinctions. And you combine that with facts about how people are time starved. The average person has 80 minutes a day of free time. How do they spend it? Greater than 60% of people don't know what they're having for dinner at 4:00 in the afternoon. All of these things line up to support it. And then from a channel perspective, it's playing offense and defense, right? The offense is I as a retailer, I'm building differentiation in the perimeter. I'm going to build my brand there because it's hard to differentiate on center store. Where I'm going to differentiate is and build my brand, and where I'm going to drive that loyalty is around the perimeter with an iconic meals platform. The top 3 selections, I was looking at a Data Central study. Top 3 reasons for choosing where to shop are still the top 3 reasons, right? It's location, it's selection, and it's value. So they're still the largest, but compared to even 3 or 4 years ago, they're in decline. When you look at the bottom end of that, what's growing? It's bakery, it's deli, it's fresh. Those are becoming bigger contributors to driving store choice and loyalty over time. Same thing's happening in convenience retail, and so there's not a grocerant. I'll help you, Jim. Internally, we call them instead of convenience retail, it's convenience restaurants. Because it's the same kind of deal. It's differentiating your brand with an ownable food service program. How do you get a shopper to turn left instead of turn right? I don't want to compete on my price per gallon for gas. And I don't want to compete on value. I want to compete on the experience. So it's larger, fresh, it's larger formats, greater selections, fresh prepared food, grab and go as well if you're in a hurry. But you're building your brand through that differentiation is how you're building loyalty. And the offense in both channels is restaurants. We looked at the Technomic study yesterday, and it looked like all channels were growing from a sales perspective, even QSR, although it was the smallest grower. If you turned it a little sideways and looked at it from traffic or trips, you're gonna have a very different story. And this is where most traditional restaurants are getting very concerned. Between grocery and convenience retail, over the last 8 years since the recession, they've lost almost 1 billion trips away from food service. Traditionally QSR, they've been the ones bleeding and into retail channels. And so, it's that incremental trip driver. It's how it's going to contribute to my business in the role that this food service or meals platform is going to play. So I think we're in this for the long haul, and it's only going to get bigger.
I want to touch for a minute or so before we take some questions from the audience about branding. When I was on the NRA show floor yesterday, I ran into a chef that I know that now works for a major company, who's developed a whole new line of product. And I talked to the marketing person and I talked to the chef. And the marketing person wants to use words like, handcrafted and small batch and, all those buzzwords. And the chef, and I was sort of like playing mediator here, was saying, those words are meaningless to the consumer today. What they want to know is they want to know that I'm using black garlic from California. That was one example, and some other ingredients, and they really want to know the story of food. Back to, what you had said before about authenticity. What role do we really need to play, and what could brands help with in telling those stories? And are we going overboard to, say that it's black garlic from California, or is that what shoppers are looking for? Richard, why don't you start?
Well, and it's interesting. It's coming from the fine dining world of restaurants. It's funny because it just seems to be peaks and valleys, and it goes back and forth over the years. I think what the brands can help do is build credibility. And I know within our organization, within our business, within our food service, we needed the consumer to trust that anything that they were going to buy from our stores was going to be absolutely delicious. It was fresh, and they didn't even need to worry about the price point that was going to be on it because the value was going to be there. And without having that credibility from, call it a world-class chef or somebody that just has that knowledge of food, you don't get those same credentials. And that's what we've really been able to do, is take this knowledge that we can put into just a few words, just like you say, those key attributes, those key products, to start to build that food credibility a little bit. Once you have that, I think what you'll see is you'll slowly start to move away from that. You have beautiful packaging and beautiful labeling and beautiful marketing when a program comes out. Once that hits that sustained life cycle, it's on cruise, and it just keeps going. You now start focusing on the next piece. But until you have that credible food program, I think that's where you need to work really, really hard in that messaging and having your people romance and talk about the products and make you want to buy it. Right? That's the key to the success there. And
so give me some examples of what you're doing.
Really, it's coming back to training, and it was funny. There's been a couple of conversations around how can the manufacturers help within the business, and there's a lot of digital training out there, and I think that's the place that we've been very successful. It's been training videos as opposed to just a traditional 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that goes out into our stores. It's black and white for the most part, and the expectations are to execute that with perfection every single time. It's not reality. We sat through the conversation around millennials. Every single one of our staff has their phone. Every single one of them can scan a QR code that can go to a video of me in the kitchen preparing our signature items, quick 30 seconds, and get that visualization of how it's going to come to life. A lot of our manufacturing partners have these facilities. They want to be able to utilize these facilities with us and share those resources, but that has been the key. And once we can build the branding piece, in those 30 quick seconds, we can talk about those key attributes of that black garlic that's in the dish, the beautiful 35% cream that's being used in the Alfredo sauce, whatever those key message points are that they can then take in front of our customers. And it's not anymore about, oh, what's that pasta that you have there? Well, it's this noodles with some garlic cream sauce and some garlic in it. Well, no. Now we can really tell the story because they've been empowered with the knowledge. And I think that's where we're falling short because nobody's reading those pieces of paper, those spec sheets. It doesn't happen. We need it to be digital training videos, which will then enable them to have that conversation with the consumer.
So, you mentioned some of the assets that the brands have. So what do you want from them? Do you want them to produce the video? Tell me what the brands can do for you.
I think it's very specific to the organization and the life cycle that they're at within food service, and the culinary knowledge. If it's somebody just starting out in the business, the chefs, they have that knowledge base already that they could be that video. They could be that credible person standing in front of that camera telling you about that product and telling you about what you're bringing to market. When you get a little bit further down the path, if you bring in somebody into the organization that has those credentials, I think it's more powerful coming from somebody from the front line. If you've got in-store chefs, if you've got those people in your stores that have a face already and that they're known, you put them on the camera. When they can deliver that message with passion, they can deliver the strategic vision of the company, that's when you really see the feet hit the ground and people buy in. I think there's a huge opportunity to make sure we utilize the proper assets that are in our stores to start building that momentum and building that training.
And not just taking whatever is thrown at you because
Absolutely.
Somebody gives it to you. So, Jeremy, I know that Hy-Vee really is deep set when it comes to authenticity and credibility. And I remember being in one of the new stores and, walking back to the bakery department. And next to the bakery department was a little bagel department. Now, coming from Newark, New Jersey, I know bagels. I can guarantee you that. But what was fascinating to me is next to the bagels was a cream cheese section that frankly was, rivaled anything you'd see on the Lower East Side of New York with the amount of flavored cream cheeses. I don't even know the amount, but I'm going to make it up. There was 20 or 15 different flavored cream cheeses. What I was dumbfounded to learn is all those cream cheeses were made in store. That the person behind the counter, when they were making a vegetable cream cheese, actually walked to the produce department, got the vegetables, cut them up, put them in the cream cheese, or strawberry cream cheese went to the produce department, got the strawberries, and so on. So talk to us a little bit about, your authenticity and how that plays into Market Grill as well as your other Hy-Vee food service operations.
Well, first of all, you have no idea how much work that created for me, because Phil made mention to Randy that we don't tell our story very well. So we spent weeks on the Phil Lempert project, just so everybody knows, to fix all of our signage to tell our story better. So I appreciate it, because we've got a lot of comments on how we tell the story on what we do, because most of what we have done and created in all of our departments has some sort of a story. So really, it's a couple pieces to this, I guess I would say, as quickly as I can. The first one is where we can be authentic and talk about it. Our artisan bread in our bakery, our fresh cream cheese in our bakery department as well. So it's fresh blueberry cream cheese made here from Michigan blueberries, got in our produce department this morning. And those are on placards now in front of all of our cream cheese, so the customer understands it's artisan without calling it artisan, because we're going to tell the story of the product. It's the New York deli meat that comes from Old World Meats in New York. This is from New York, fresh New York made sandwich. We got it this morning. So those are things that we are trying to do a better job to tell the customer, so they understand that it truly is made here in an authentic and original product. And there's frankly spots where, as we try to get our restaurant credibility, our dessert menu is Cheesecake Factory. Where we can partner with manufacturers that are good at what they do and their brands line up with us, such as Cheesecake Factory, if you can't beat them, join them. So our dessert menu is the Cheesecake Factory. Our protein in our smoothie bar is Mark Wahlberg's. We've linked up. We're the exclusive supplier of Mark Wahlberg performance-inspired protein in the Midwest. So all of our smoothies are made with performance-inspired protein, and the whole story's on the smoothie bar, because it, again, has a story, it has a purpose, it's all natural, and there's things like that we can do with manufacturers and brands that, frankly, helps us tell the story, gives us credibility in a space that we'd probably have to fight for it, that lets us win in those areas. And then there's places like our cream cheese that, frankly, we can win by being completely artisan and making it in the store. So I think for us, it's a combination of partnerships where we've lined up in different areas, such as the Cheesecake Factory, and it's spots that, frankly, we make in-house and feel like it's a product that's not able to be replicated, and it's second to none. So it's kind of a combination of both, is a quick answer to your question, Phil.
So two comments. One is, when I hear this, what I think about is Toll House cookies. Going back 100 years or however many years it was, when a restaurant would put Toll House cookies on their menu, or Ben & Jerry's ice cream and so on, it really upped the game, and you're bringing it to Mark Wahlberg, being very, very contemporary. The other thing that I've got to tell you, and one of the reasons that I love Jeremy and Hy-Vee, is just so you know, we don't do any consulting or anything else. I get this call one day from Randy, who says, I opened a new store. Would you walk the store with me? And, we get calls like that very often. We don't charge retailers to do that or anything else, so it's not about money. And I've got to tell you, walking around this store with Randy and Donna, and just being able to see things through, a consumer's eyes and so on was great. And I give them so much credit for reaching out. And I've got to tell you that so many retailers don't reach out and look at the resources that are available to them, and not from a consulting standpoint, whatever else, just to see through the consumer's eyes. So I'm sorry I made more work for you. Let's bring it down to authenticity. Can we have authenticity in a convenience store?
Oh, absolutely. We're in one of the most wonderful areas of the country where there's so many products available to us. We're proud to say over 250 companies in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa have products in our stores. So we tell that through our PR messages, but we also have a lot of that kind of thing on our packaging. So it's built in. You don't want to use catchy words. So it's that does get lost on people. I agree with you. In a lot of those cases, the words just start to blend, but it is more about that in-depth localization of the product that is just brought forth in your packaging and some of your sublime messaging. So
we've got about 5 minutes for questions, then we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. And Nicholas, if I could ask you to be our moderator and walk around with the microphone, I think it's coming. So if you have a question for any of our panelists, please raise your hand. Nicholas will find you. Please introduce yourself first, and let's get started.
Hello, I'm Tony McGinn with Nestle Professional, and my question is for Jeremy. I think everybody in here aspires to go in the direction that you've gone, and they've probably tried, maybe failed, or but for some reason maybe they're not quite there. Can you kind of take us through what the evolution, because in the beginning you had to have, some discussions, possibly even negotiations internally with this is going to require more labor, capital expense, etc., and what that looked like, and then clearly there's been bumps in the road early on. And how did you overcome them? Because you had to obviously sustain what you were doing through these bumps in the road. And I think number two is during this evolution, how has your relationship with your suppliers or manufacturers changed or evolved?
Well, I guess for the beginning of that answer, and we're still evolving. I mean, we're still figuring it out, and, we're only halfway through our journey of converting, to restaurants. So we're still learning as we go. As far as how we got there, I mean, it's, you get one open and you test it and you move forward. And we've made a ton of changes along the way because you're learning. We're a grocery company that's evolving. And I think Richard said it, but, we're an 86-year-old company that's had food service for, 80 of those years. So you're trying to change a culture that is difficult. And, you've got to continue to have small victories and wins. And I think for most of us that operated traditional food service, if you look at volume after 4, it was non-existent. I mean, in most traditional food stores, there's nobody in your sit-down area or casual dining after 4 o'clock. So we saw the need, we saw the transition to restaurants, and we jumped in. And I think the way that you just share small wins and small victories, and as they continue to be more successful and they grow, you continue to get more buy-in and more people on the same page. But I think we all understood that we needed to have a different destination for restaurant. And I think and I know we've all said it, but it's the right people. It's the restaurant folks. It's getting the right people hired. It's, we've got 395 chefs in our company today, and that's an average of more than one per store. And that's the purpose of getting the food culture into our stores to be experts and not novice, not amateur. And I think that's all a part of the evolution as you move through, because as we started the restaurant journey, in 2012, we didn't have a handful of chefs, so I think it continues to grow. It's no different than a dietitian program we started 10 years ago. Now there's one in every store. So I think it just becomes the norm, but it does take time and it does take learnings to do that because it's not ingrained in most of our culture that have run a traditional grocery store for a lot of years.
Next question.
Hello, my name is Inigo Fica. I'm working for OXXO down in Chile. My question is for Jim. I was wondering, when we are accepting the increasing relevance of food service at convenience store, I was wondering, how are you implementing this in the store in terms of what categories are paying the price for this? You're obviously sharing a very limited space in convenience stores. So what categories are suffering? Are you somehow sacrificing in order to be able to deliver an increased and more powerful food service proposal?
Did you say you're from Chile? Yeah. Been through your country quite a bit, actually. My brother lives down there, so I've visited and I believe I've been in your store. So actually, I was impressed a few years ago by going through some of your stores because I thought you did have a good food service program. But what we've seen is the traditional C-store products are obviously in decline. So tobacco and sorry to say, some soft drinks, but just for some of our areas and stuff like that. But we've actually been able to just kind of rationalize our grocery SKUs in order to make room for more food service. And of course, we're growing our footprint of our stores a little bit bigger. So, you have to look at what's convenient and what you can fit in your footprint. So we use manufacturers that have like speed ovens and that kind of thing where we don't have to have traditional hoods. We use hot case, grab and go hot cases, and we've really simplified the menu by having multiple use for different kinds of products. So it's actually kind of simple if you keep it simple. Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, my name is Corey Tuggle. I'm with Church Brothers Farms out of Salinas, California. We are a large salad grower. And my question is both for Jeremy and or Richard. Specific, and I'll make it produce-specific question, but do you promote synergy between your existing produce department team and, say, your deli or food service teams and chefs? Is there any overlap to get any synergy there from your
we
knowledge?
do, in particular. And we also try to offer our produce at a value. We're every day at 38 cents for bananas, potatoes, and onions. But yeah, we're all in the same room. And we were talking earlier about how do you break down some of those divisions, and you just have to be in the same room having the same discussion because you got the same goal.
You know, and for us, we do. Our chefs aren't necessarily, I guess, put in one silo. So they do, and they cross-promote everywhere. I mean, we've got a chef that's really in our restaurant. Excuse me. We also have a retail chef. So many of our stores, especially our large ones, have at least 2 chefs in them. So they are really going between, you know, and we promote our produce department, obviously, in our menu with everything we do that's fresh. You know, it's all coming from either local, you know, that's procured through our produce department or coming from our produce department. So for us, it's all one big machine. I guess we don't silo anything. Our chefs are in our restaurants at the busy time walking through, you know, both our retail chefs and our restaurant-specific chefs. So they all go both ways, I guess I would say. I mean, it makes sense to do so.
And we're in a very similar position as to Jeremy mentioned. We just make sure to keep those 2 separated. So we have a kitchen manager or a chef that runs our kitchens or our deli operations, as well as that retail chef. And I think it's that retail chef that could really start to bring those synergies across all the departments. But what we've really tried to do is, from an innovation standpoint, I will bring the retail chef team in, have them help with the development of the new menu items, have them help with the development of the new products, because the buy-in is just that much better. As soon as they feel that they've contributed to the development of that menu item, they want to sell it. And the benefit there is that we're now using that same product in the deli, in the kitchen, in the bakery, in the meat and seafood department, and within our food service operations. And that's been the key for us, is just to really make sure that holistic overview is promoting the same product through all the departments within the store. Because traditionally, even a year and a half ago when I joined, that was not the case. Private label was working on something different than the deli, the meat and seafood, to the bakery. And I'll tell you, the biggest challenge we had was internal logistics. How do I transfer the labor from this department to use that same product? But that was the benefit, that we started to break down those barriers. And again, it's those tough conversations just with the mindsets that have been around for a lot of years. So it was new perspective and well received, which was great.
Coming up next, we're going to talk about social media and grocerants, and then after that, our talent panel, led by Gary Zekel from Mariano's and our students from Kendall College. So quick 10-minute break, but first, please help me in thanking our great panel for some great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.